Sir. No, no, no. Nare.
So let's begin. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamallam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sta Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Astatade Shatarine Pancha Kalpatarugashta Kripa Sandhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Welcome all of you all for a weekly Gita class. So last 2 weeks, I think Gopal Smarantu was giving the classes. He has completed text 7 and 8 of the second chapter, but I thought we will do a quick recap of these verses before we get into verse 9. So especially 7 and 8 are very important verses, uh, and especially verse 7 is actually a turning point in the Gita. This verse 7 is where Arjuna actually surrenders to Krishna. Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma samudha cheta yashreyasyan nishchit. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, my dear Lord, I am now a soul surrendered unto you. I am now your disciple. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, I am your disciple. So please instruct me for certain what is beneficial to me. So I'll read the translation. Now I'm confused about my duty and I've lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So the Gita begins with uh, this disposition. When one really comes to this conclusion that I need a guru, I need a spiritual master. I am confused about my own life. I don't have clarity. In that mood, when someone surrenders to Krishna or Krishna's representative, then one can understand Gita. You see, Arjuna is such a powerful warrior. You all can keep yourselves muted. Huh? So Arjuna is such a powerful warrior. So Arjuna is such a powerful warrior, but still he is coming to this point in his life where he understands that I need a spiritual master, I need a guru, and he's very humble in accepting this and expressing this in front of everyone. Generally, no one likes to. Can you all please keep yourselves muted? Meena Mataji.
Yes, yes.
So generally, when someone is very powerful and very accomplished, it becomes difficult for such a person to surrender unto someone or to honestly accept. I think all of y'all, Snehal Mataji, Vidya, Vinay,
Yes, yes.
please keep yourselves muted.
Hmm.
Yeah. Please mute yourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So generally, when someone is very powerful and very accomplished, it becomes difficult to project your image in front of others as I am defeated. Here, Arjuna is such a powerful warrior who's defeated Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, but he has no sense of, he doesn't feel that my image is going to get spoiled if I surrender to Krishna. What will people think? No. When someone comes to a guru, he comes in a mood that I really don't know anything, however intelligent you may be. And this has been our parampara. Here we can see Arjuna surrendering to Krishna, telling Krishna that, my dear Krishna, I'm a fool. You know, I'm thinking myself intelligent, but I don't know anything. Please instruct me. In the Bhagavatam, you have Vyasdev, who's the compiler of the Vedas. He surrenders unto Narad Muni and tells Narada, you please instruct me. The same Bhagavatam we have in the second canto, Narad Muni going and surrendering to Lord Brahma. My dear Lord Brahma, please instruct me. So this is our parampara. Parikshit Maharaj surrendering to Shukdev Goswami. Parikshit is such a great soul. He's already uh, a great devotee of the Lord, but still he goes to Shukdev Goswami, telling Shukdev Goswami, I am about to die. Please tell me what my duty is. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he goes and meets his Guru Ishwarapuri, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord, but he goes to Ishwarapuri and tells Ishwarapuri that I am a fool. You please instruct me. So this mood of surrendering to Krishna and his representatives is very, very important. Like in the life of Srila Prabhupada, the first time Srila Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, his spiritual master, Prabhupada was a 24-year-old man, newly married, and Prabhupada was arguing with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that India is still under the British rule. First, we should get independence, and then we will discuss about your Gita. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati very strongly defeated Prabhupada and told him that this Krishna consciousness cannot wait even for independence. And Prabhupada writes that I was happy to be defeated by my spiritual master. So to be defeated by one's guru, to become humble in front of one's guru is something that's very, very important in understanding the wisdom of Gita. So we will spend some little time understanding the concept of guru, because in text 7 and in text 8, in both the purports, Prabhupada stresses on the importance of accepting a guru and the role of a guru in one's life. So there is a saying in English: success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. So when we are successful in life, naturally many people come. Uh, Praveen Shade Prabhu, can you mute yourself, please? Yeah. So in English, there's a saying: success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. That means when we are successful, many people come to us. But when we are in failure, when we are down in life, when we go to that, you know, down phase of life, there is hardly anyone who comes near us. And many times these are phases which are good for us, because these are phases where we actually surrender to Krishna. This today morning, we had gone 10 days for a Vrindavan Yatra. So today morning we had a flight back to Goa from Delhi, and one devotee was dropping us to the Delhi airport. So he was telling us his story. He's into construction line, he's a civil engineer. So he had become partner with one person, and their partnership was going on well. And suddenly that partner took all the share and left this devotee completely. And this devotee was shattered, disturbed, depressed. But then he was telling us that this was actually a turning point in his life, because it was because of this depression, this failure, that he took shelter of Krishna and the devotees, and his spiritual life started. So the point is, when we go through failures in life, when we go through the down phases in life, it can be opportunities for us to take shelter of Krishna and the devotees of Krishna. And if we do that, that failure becomes a success. That will be the biggest success in our life. Like we have in the Bhagavatam the story of Dhruva Maharaj. We all know the story. Dhruva Maharaj was rejected by his father and stepmother. So it was in one sense a failure. Dhruva Maharaj was very depressed. But that led to his greatest success, because his mother, Suniti, told him to take shelter of Krishna. Suniti was like Dhruva's first guru, and she inspired Dhruva Maharaj to take shelter of Krishna. So a real friend is one who inspires us in our difficult times to see that these difficult times are wonderful opportunities for us to take shelter of Krishna. And if we do that, those failures are the greatest success in our life. So, few years ago, we had gone to Udupi for a yatra there, and Pejavar Maharaj, who left his body, I think 2 years ago, of Udupi Mutt, he was explaining to all the devotees that in spiritual life, the law of gravity works the opposite way. In the material world, the law of gravity is when something goes up, it comes down. You throw something on top, it comes down. But in spiritual life, the law of gravity works. People who are humble are actually pushed up by Krishna. So the point is, when we go through failures in life and we actually become humble. So when do we actually become humble? Many times when we go through difficulties and when we fail, that failure gives us humility. Just like our Vrajvihari Prabhu, one of our brahmacharis in Chowpatty temple, Bombay, he tells us that when we chant Hare Krishna, how do we judge whether our chanting is good or not? Generally, our idea is, if I chant well, then I should feel lot of bliss. But he explains that before we experience bliss in chanting, we first experience humility. We first understand our own realities, and we understand that, my condition is very fallen. We come in terms with the reality of our own life, of our inner life, and that makes us humble. And in that humility, bliss is born. So before bliss, before happiness in spiritual life comes humility. And when that humility is there, then the wisdom of Gita takes us higher. So here Arjuna is in a very humble state. He's understood that all my learning, all my education, all my power is useless in helping me. Only Krishna and the wisdom of Krishna can save me. So Prabhupada in this purport, uh, I'm sure Gopal Swaran Prabhu must have discussed this point. He discusses the difference between a Kripana and a Brahmana. A Kripana is a miser and a Brahmana is a broad-hearted person. So who's a miser? A miser is one who has money, who has wealth, but doesn't utilize it. But a Brahmana is one who has wealth and he knows how to utilize it also. So that is the difference between a Kripana and a Brahmana. A Kripana means he has wealth, but he lives a life of a beggar. He doesn't know how to use that wealth. That's a miser. And Prabhupada explains that what is our greatest wealth? Our greatest wealth is this human form of life. This is the greatest wealth. Durlabho manusho deho dehinam shanubangura tatrapi durlabam manye vaikunta priya darshana. So the Bhagavatam explains that this human form is very, very rare. So this is the greatest wealth. So Kripana is one who has got this human form but doesn't utilize it properly. But a Brahmana is one who has got this human form and knows how to utilize it. So Prabhupada explains the difference between a Kripana and a Brahmana. Because Arjuna is saying here, Karpanya dosho. So Karpanya dosho means miserly weakness. So when we are miserly, we are on this bodily platform. And we think that this body is meant for our sense gratification. But when we actually come out of this miserly consciousness and come to the consciousness of a Brahmana, who is a Brahmana? Brahmajanati iti Brahman. One who lives a life centered around Brahman, centered around spirituality. Such a person is a Brahmana. So Prabhupada stresses this example, the difference between a Brahmana and a Kripana. So as I told you, our real wealth is this human form of life. So when we use this human form of life in achieving Krishna, that is the life of a Brahmana. So we all know the story of Kailash, isn't it? The very, very famous story that Srila Prabhupada would tell regularly, that there was this one person called Kailash, very attached to his family. So Narad Muni comes and tells Kailash that, my dear Kailash, come with me to the spiritual world, become a devotee of Krishna, take up Krishna consciousness. Kailash tells Narad Muni, definitely I want to take it up, but right now I'm busy, I'm tied up, I have so many other responsibilities. I will take it up later. So Narad Muni comes later and he sees that Kailash is dead. Now Kailash has become a dog in his own house. Because Krishna tells in the Gita, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajyati anta kalevaram tam tam evati kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever one remembers at the time of death, that is the body one will get. Because this person died, Kailash died remembering his house, being attached to his house. He was born as a dog there. So Narad Muni, crying, he tells Kailash that at least now become a devotee. But Kailash tells Narad Muni, I'm still busy. I have responsibilities to carry on. My work is still not done. So the nature of this world is it keeps us, Maya keeps us busy always. So we have to remove time for Krishna. We will not get time in abundance. It's not possible. We have to remove time. Otherwise, like Kailash, we will keep taking different bodies. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. So the next time Narad Muni comes, Kailash has died in the body of a dog also, and he's born as a snake there. And the same sons and the grandsons of Kailash beat the snake and kill Kailash. And at that point, Kailash understands the message of Narad Muni. So the point is, we all should not live a life of Kailash, but we should live a life where we take the messages of Krishna and the representatives of Krishna very, very seriously. So what is there in a priority list is very important. What is our topmost priority? Is Krishna a priority? Is Krishna's service a priority? Or is it there somewhere in the bottom? After we carry on all our activities, duties, and if there is little time, we do Krishna consciousness. What is the priority list? If Krishna is the topmost priority, then Krishna will make us his topmost priority. If Krishna is there somewhere in the bottom of the list, then we will also be in the bottom of the list for Krishna. Ye yatama prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Krishna says reciprocal surrender. As one surrenders unto me, Krishna says, I reward accordingly. So to make Krishna our priority is very, very important. So here Arjuna is surrendering to Krishna. Shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam. Prapannam means I am a soul surrendered unto you. So the word surrender is very important. Prapannam, sharanam, surrender. So generally when we hear the word surrender, we get a very scary feeling. Are, so just like in films you have, na, when there is no other option, then you raise your hand, surrender. It's not voluntary. You don't want to do it, but there is no option. So our general idea of surrender is very scary. But here, surrender is not scary, but surrender is one of the most natural and beautiful things. It's very natural. Just like a child is surrendered to his parents, and the child doesn't have to worry. Does the child go and ask the parents, oh, my dear father, will you arrange food for me today? Not at all. The child doesn't have to go and ask. That's why when the Christians go to the church and pray, my dear God, give us our daily bread. That's a wonderful prayer, but that's not a very high kind of prayer. Why? Because God will naturally give bread for everyone. Why will he not give? Isn't it? So if we surrender to Krishna, just like a child surrenders to the father, and the father takes care. So surrender is something that's very, very natural. Like children, who go to school or college, you surrender to the authorities there. It's very natural. Like now this COVID period is going on. So everyone has to surrender to the authorities. Whatever the doctor says, you have to just follow. So it may appear scary, but it's actually a very, very natural way to grow in life. So just like, if you're sick, you surrender to the doctor, surrender to the process, and you will get cured. So what is real surrender? Real surrender is to give up false ego. Surrender is not about changing the dress. It's not about external thing. Real surrender is to give up false ego. It's not about giving up money. It's not about giving up position. That's all fine. But the most important thing to give up is false ego. The ego that I am great, I am powerful, I am independent. To give that up and become humble, and to understand that I am insignificant and I am a servant of Krishna. That is true ego. That is the platform of real surrender. Gopi Bharatur Padakamalayur Das 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 Anudas. To become the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees of Krishna is actually the meaning of surrender, prapannam. So Prabhupada explains here the need for surrender. Why do we need to surrender to Krishna? Or why do we need to surrender to a guru? Do I need a guru in my life? So Prabhupada explains here very beautifully. Very difficult concepts. Prabhupada has made it so simple and so easy to understand. So Prabhupada explains that just like in a forest fire, how there is a forest fire, no one goes and burns, lights up a forest fire. The branches, the wind blows, two twigs rub against each other and the fire starts. So the nature of this world is there is a forest fire. Samsara dhava nalali daloka. This world is on fire. Isn't it? We are seeing this COVID crisis. It's actually fire. We thought that, 2020 was over, the COVID crisis was over. Now again, the phase 2, the next part of it is starting. Hardly any oxygen, no beds available. So this world is on fire. There are so much problems everywhere. Samsara dhava. So therefore, and when there is a forest fire, you can't extinguish the forest fire with a fire extinguisher. Even an aeroplane that throws water doesn't extinguish. The only hope is if the clouds come and the rain there, then the forest fire can get extinguished. That is the only way. There is no other option. So that's why samsara dhava nalali daloka pranaya karunya ghana ghanatvam. So we sing this every day morning in glorification of the Guru, that this world is on a fire. Some huge burning forest fire. Without, there is so much problem. And the only solution to the problems to this forest fire of this material existence is the cloud of the mercy of Guru. When the Guru comes and showers mercy, then this forest fire can get extinguished. But does the Guru have his own mercy? Does the cloud have its own water? No. The cloud gets water from the ocean. It gets water from the ocean and it comes and rains where the forest fire is. Similarly, the Guru doesn't have his own mercy. The Guru gets mercy from Krishna. So the Guru is mercy incarnate. He is the Krishna's mercy in a person form, in an incarnation form is Guru. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu. Krishna is that ocean and Guru is that cloud. He brings that mercy of Krishna and showers upon all of us through the words. So what is the most important thing when you go to a Guru? You hear from a Guru. So where does that nectar, where does that rain come? That rain is through the words of the Guru. So when we hear from the Guru, then the forest fire within our heart is extinguished. That is why the gopis pray to Krishna, Tava katamritam tapta jivanam kavi biriditam kalmashapaham shravana mangalam shrimadatam bhuvi grinanti ye bhuri dajana. So the gopis pray to Krishna, Tava katamritam, my dear Krishna, your katha, is Tava katamritam tapta jivanam, extinguishes the forest fire of our hearts. Kavi biriditam kalmashapaham, and all the great souls sing about your glories, and it removes all the dirty things in our heart. Shravana mangalam shrimadatatam, and by hearing about your katha, there is great auspiciousness that comes. Therefore, those devotees who speak about your Krishna katha, speak about your pastimes, are actually the most beneficent souls, the most greatest well-wishers of the world. So Guru is someone who is very important in life. It's not a matter of option. It's not a matter of luxury. It is a matter of necessity. If we don't have a Guru to surrender to, we will not find solutions to our problems in life. So we will spend some time understanding the concept of Guru. So we all know, we discussed in our Journey of Self-Discovery course, that the best way of gaining knowledge is Shabda Praman. We saw 3 ways of gaining knowledge: Pratyaksha Praman, Anuman Praman, and Shabda Praman. Pratyaksha Praman means gaining knowledge through the senses, through our mind, intelligence. Anuman Praman is guesswork, using your intelligence, your mind. But the best way of gaining knowledge is Shabda Praman, hearing from authorities. So, is Guru necessary? Yes, definitely a Guru is necessary. Just like we gave you, Prabhupada gives the example of the forest fire. To extinguish the forest fire, a cloud is necessary. To get rid of a disease, a doctor is necessary. Similarly, to be cured from our material problems, our wrong identity, a misconception, a Guru is necessary. Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We sing this, before we start our pravachan in the Mangalacharan, that we all have this cataract of ignorance. Just like if someone has eyes and there is cataract, he can't see properly. Therefore, a doctor has to come, an eye surgeon has to come, and he removes those cataract, and then you can see. He has an instrument, Shalakaya. It's an instrument to remove the cataract. Similarly, a Guru has that instrument. Through his words, he removes the ignorance of our eyes and gives us the vision to see Krishna. So therefore, a Guru is very, very necessary in life. So what is the role of a Guru? Guru does 4 things. First, he teaches us Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. Second, he acts like a magnet that helps us align our desire, words, and actions in the service of Krishna. Third, he helps us to connect one to Krishna. And fourth, he sows the seed of bhakti in our heart. So the first role of a Guru is he teaches us the process of Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. Sambandha means what is our relationship with Krishna. Abhideya means what is the process through which we can establish that relation. And Prayojan means what happens after that relationship is established. So these are three aspects of spiritual life: Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. Just like recently we went to Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, there are three deities and three acharyas, three of the Goswamis, who represent these three principles. Like the Sambandha Murti in Vrindavan is the deity of Madan Mohan. Sanatan Goswami is the acharya. So Sanatan Goswami and Madan Mohan help us establish that relationship with Krishna. And Rupa Goswami is the Abhideya Guru. And the Abhideya Vigraha is Govinda Dev. This is another deity in Vrindavan. So Rupa Goswami has taught us the process of bhakti. And then finally Prayojan. Prayojan is the deity of Gopinath. And the Prayojan Guru is Raghunath Das Goswami. What happens when we establish that relation? So Guru has to teach us systematically what is a relationship with Krishna, how to revive the relationship, and what happens after we revive the relationship. So second role of a Guru, he aligns our desires. Just like now, you can see this picture, random alignment and aligned by field. So when you put a magnet, then you have a small metal. Generally, in that metal, the electrons of the metal are scattered everywhere in all directions. But when you put a magnetic field and you keep that metal in between, all the electrons get channelized in one direction. So Guru is one who helps us channelize our desires. Otherwise, we have so many desires that are everywhere. Bahushakai anantascha. We have desires everywhere. Guru helps us channelize it so that we can achieve a goal. Isn't it? Even in life, like in any field, you need a coach. Like someone who's doing athletics, running or weightlifting, he needs a coach. Or cricket, football, whatever. A coach helps you focus on that game so properly that you can become successful. So if for normal things you need a coach, for spiritual life also you need a coach. A guru helps us focus. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kuru nandana. How to make Krishna one-pointed attention. That is what Guru does. He channelizes all our desires and aspirations in one direction so that we can achieve Krishna. So that is the role of a Guru, the second role. The third role is the Guru is like a transparent via medium. Just like you have a power grid, a powerhouse, but the powerhouse goes through different poles, power poles, and then finally it comes to our house, to our socket, wherever we get electricity from. So Guru is like those electric poles. Electricity ultimately comes from the powerhouse, but the electric poles transmit that energy. Like Prabhupada would many times give this example. A Guru is like a postal peon. What does a postal peon do? A postman, he takes letter from one place and delivers it to another place. He doesn't add, he doesn't subtract. Just a transparent medium. Like Hanumanji, the perfect example of a Guru. Right? Ram Navami is coming soon. What Hanumanji would do? He took the message of Lord Ram, gave it to Sita, took the message of Sita, gave it to Lord Ram. And in between he did some extra service also. So that's the role of a Guru. Takes the message of the Lord, gives it as it is to the devotees, and takes the message of the devotees, gives it as it did to the Lord. Just passes it directly to the Lord. That's the role of a Guru. That's why Srila Prabhupada wrote this Bhagavad Gita and named Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because what is coming from Krishna directly is being passed on, without addition or subtraction. The fourth role of a Guru is that a Guru sows the seed of bhakti. Brahmand Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. So we living entities keep wandering in this material world. Brahmand Brahmite. Not in this one universe, in so many universes we keep wandering in different bodies, 84 lakh species. Brahmand Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev. And out of that, some rare fortunate soul gets the seed of bhakti through the mercy of the Guru. So the seed of bhakti is not given by Krishna, it is given by Guru. So it is Guru who actually gives us the seed of bhakti and gives us Krishna. So Guru is very, very important in life. Without a Guru, one cannot achieve Krishna. Just like in the Ramayana, there's the story of Sugriva. Sugriva wanted to fight with Vali, but until Sugriva received the mercy of Lakshman, Sugriva didn't get the mercy of Lord Ram. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi. Only by the mercy of Guru one can get the mercy of Krishna. Without the mercy of Guru, one cannot get the mercy of Krishna. So no one can say that, "Arey, I don't need a Guru. I will get Krishna directly." Not possible. Even Krishna took a Guru. Even Lord Ram took a Guru. Lord Chaitanya took a Guru to teach all of us that accepting a Guru is very, very important in life. So what are the various types of Guru? So there are 4 types of Guru. The first is called the Chaitya Guru. The second is called Pada Pradashak Guru. The third is Shiksha Guru, and the fourth is Diksha Guru. So Chaitya Guru is the Paramatma, Krishna, who is there in all our hearts. He also acts as a Guru. Paramatma also keeps us speaking so many things, right? So he is the Chaitya Guru. But the problem is, many times we can't hear the voice of the Paramatma. We are not tuned into that frequency. It's very confusing whether we are hearing the voice of the Paramatma, it is the mind. It's very tricky. Therefore, we need a physical Guru. So the second Guru is called Pada Pradashak Guru, one who guides us on the path of bhakti. Someone who tells us, come for our program, someone who gives us a pamphlet. He is the initial, the one who is guiding us. Like in the life of Srila Prabhupada, when Srila Prabhupada went to meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada had a friend. His name was Narendra Mullik, I think. So this friend of Prabhupada told Prabhupada that, come, let us go and meet Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So even though Prabhupada became a devotee, Narendra Mullik didn't become, but still Prabhupada accepted his friend as the Pada Pradashak Guru. He's the one who introduced him to the path of Krishna consciousness. The third is Shiksha Guru, the third type of Guru. Anyone who instructs us or inspires us in the path of bhakti is a Shiksha Guru. And one can have many, many Shiksha Gurus. We can keep learning from so many devotees. Right? Practically every devotee can be a Shiksha Guru. And the fourth is a Diksha Guru. Shiksha Guru can be many, but Diksha Guru is only one. One who gives us initiation. One who formally initiates us in the process of bhakti is called Diksha Guru. One who gives us mantra Diksha. So one needs these 4 types of gurus in one's spiritual life in order to become successful. So what is the qualification of a guru? The first qualification is, there are 5 qualifications, many qualifications, but 5 most important. He must be in parampara, he must teach by example, he must be self-controlled, a pure devotee, and must know the essence of scriptures. The first most important qualification is that he has to be in parampara. Sampradaya vihina ye mantraste nishvala mata. So the scriptures say that if we receive a mantra, but it is not in parampara, it is not in sampradaya, that mantra is useless. So the first qualification of a guru is that he has to be in parampara. We know that there are 4 bona fide Vaishnava paramparas: Shri Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Kumar Sampradaya, and Brahma Sampradaya. And ISKCON comes in Brahma Sampradaya, right? So to accept a guru in a parampara is very, very important. Until one is in a proper parampara, he cannot be considered a bona fide guru. The second is qualification of guru is that he has to teach by example. So therefore, a guru is called an acharya. Acharya means one whose acharan is perfect. So without having a proper example, you can't lead others. In material life, anyone can become a teacher. He may be smoking, drinking. He can teach math, geography, and go. But in spiritual life, it doesn't work like that. If you're not following properly, your instructions, your words will not have the potency. It will be like an empty bullet. The gun will make noise, but the bullet is empty. No gunpowder in it. No effect. So similarly, prachar will happen only when there is proper achar. So guru is one who is an acharya who follows things perfectly. The third qualification of a guru is he's self-controlled. Like Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instruction, he explains, Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaropastha vegam etan vegan yo vishahet dira sarvam apima prithvim sa shishyat. So Rupa Goswami says, who can become a guru and accept disciples all over the world? One who has controlled Vacho Vegam, his words, his speech. Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam. One who has controlled his mind and anger. Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam. One who has controlled the urge to eat palatable food. Jiva Vegam, Udara Upastha Vegam. And the forces, urges of the belly and genitals. Such a person is can be qualified to be a guru. The uh, fourth quality is that he has to be a pure devotee. This is something that's very, very important. Without becoming a devotee of Krishna, one cannot be a guru. Guru means he has to be a devotee of Krishna. So, like Srila Prabhupada was discussing with the Beatles, you know, in London, George Harrison and Len, uh, I forgot his name, uh, the other Beatles, they were discussing together, and these Beatles were asking Prabhupada that you have written a Gita, and there are so many other people who have also written Gita. What is special about your Gita? So Prabhupada said, who can write about Gita and who can speak about Gita? Bhakto sime sakacheti rahasyam etad uttamam. Krishna tells in the Gita, my dear Arjuna, I am telling you this knowledge because you are my devotee and my friend. So only one who is a devotee of Krishna can speak about Krishna and can be a guru. So Prabhupada was telling these Beatles, George Harrison and the others, that only one who is addicted to Krishna can become a guru. So just like you have different addictions, so until you are addicted to Krishna, one cannot be a guru. So guru means pure devotee. 24 hours engaged in the service of Krishna. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Kirtaniya sadahari. If you study the life of Srila Prabhupada, morning, evening, any time of the day, Prabhupada was engaged in Krishna service. Preaching about Krishna, managing Krishna's uh, institution, the movement, serving Krishna, writing books, continuously, 24 hours engaged. And the fifth qualification of the Guru is that he knows the essence of scriptures. He knows the sar grahi. He knows the essence. And what is the essence? The essence is Krishna. Vedeshta sarver ahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda videva chaham. Krishna tells in the Gita, the 15th chapter, 15th verse, that I am the compiler of the Vedas and through the Vedas I am supposed to be known. So the essence of the Vedas is to know Krishna. One time, Srila Prabhupada, there was a group of Mayavadi scholars, great scholars of the Vedas who came to meet Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada asked them a simple question. All of you all have studied the Vedas. Can you all tell me who is God? They all started to tell Prabhupada that's a very difficult question. It's not easy to explain. It's a very technical question. It's not, concept of God is not so easy to understand. Prabhupada called one young little girl, Saraswati, small girl, 2-3 years old girl who was there. And Prabhupada asked this girl, who is God? And the Saraswati said, Krishna is God. And Prabhupada gave her a biscuit, a cookie, and told these people, this girl knows the Vedas more than all of y'all. You all have studied the Vedas, but you all have missed the essence. But this girl, she has not studied the Vedas, but she knows the essence. And the essence is Krishna. And finally, a guru is also expert in guiding others. He knows how to guide the disciples in the path of Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada was such an expert guru. Prabhupada knew how to engage everyone in Krishna's service according to his nature, according to his inclination, somehow or the other. Yena kena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayet. Somehow or the other to engage our mind in Krishna's service. So these are 5 qualifications of a guru. Must be in parampara, he must teach by example, must be self-controlled, a pure devotee, and must know the essence of the scriptures. So any questions, any comments till here? We will continue from text 8 the next time. Anyone has any questions? Any comments? Okay, Sharmila Mataji has a question. Can a guru refuse to take a disciple? Yes, definitely he can refuse. Yeah. So, in fact, if someone is not following things properly, if a disciple is not sincere, a guru should definitely refuse. What would be the reason to refuse? Yeah. So if the disciple is not sincere, if he is not disciplined, disciple means disciplined. So whatever the guru tells, he should be ready to follow. You know. So if a disciple is not sincere in following the rules and regulations, definitely a guru can reject. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Sri Krishna Prabhu, I just wrote my questions on the comment chat. Please.
Chat you have written. Oh, okay. What is the difference between spiritual master and initiation spiritual master? So generally, yeah. So spiritual master can be, all those four can be a spiritual master. Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, Padapradaksha Guru. But generally, a Diksha Guru is referred to as a spiritual master. Generally, we can have many spiritual masters, Shiksha Gurus, but generally the word spiritual masters reserved for one who gives Diksha. And that is only one. There is only one Diksha Guru that can be there. Whom shall we listen and follow the instructions? Yeah. So any devotee who is sincerely following, who is in parampara, who's trying to follow in the footsteps of this Guru, we can listen to them definitely. Yeah. But following instructions, see what happens when we listen to, see, we can get inspiration from many people, but if you're talking about personal life instructions, making some personal decisions, then it's better to have one counselor or one guide, one devotee whom you can follow, and get inspiration from. Because if there are too many people giving instructions, it gets messy basically, on a practical front. In family life, many times there is conflict between guru instruction and the family member understanding. Being in family life, how can we deal with such situation? Yeah, very true. That being in family, it's not always easy. So therefore, we have to balance. Like today morning only, this devotee was dropping us to the airport. He was telling us that actually he wants to practice Krishna consciousness very fully, but his wife is not that supportive. So because his business was going down, he was just traveling in a bike. But his wife was telling him that no, we should get a car, we should get a good car. And he went and asked the devotees what we should do. So the devotees told him, see, to practice bhakti, you don't need car, you can go around in bike only. But then if you don't satisfy your wife, then it will be difficult for you to, she will not support you in Krishna consciousness. So sometimes you have to do that balancing act, intelligently. You have to try to balance it out. So it's not easy, but with proper guidance, with sincere practice, prayer, and with lot of sensitivity. Sensitivity is very important. So when we deal with family members, we should not be very harsh. Sensitively, we should keep dealing. And if we do that, then slowly it will happen. Yeah, definitely.
Hare
Sharmila Mataji
Krishna
said-
Prabhuji.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
yeah, yes, Mataji.
Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. My question is regarding the Guru.
Yeah.
Like, see, now we are into this organization, ISKCON.
Correct.
We have not met Prabhupada ji,
Correct.
but is he our Guru, right?
Yeah. Prabhupada is the
Even though
Param
we
Guru.
have not,
Yeah. I get
He
your
will
question.
be
Yeah.
our Param Guru.
Yes, Prabhupada
Yeah.
is the Param Guru
He
of
will be
everyone in
our
ISKCON.
Guru. Yeah. And then we will be listening to so many acharyas like you, but we may not be in touch with everybody. Like, even when we go to a direct satsang like Krishna Shreya and all that, they may not have time to hold our hands and guide us step by step. It's a
Yeah.
general instructions we are following. So
Yeah.
how do we go about it?
Yeah, very
Who
good
do we
question.
consider as our guru here?
A very good question. Very good question. So the first thing is, see, in ISKCON, Prabhupada is the Param Guru of everyone. So even though we may not have met Prabhupada, but Prabhupada is it can be experienced directly through the books. If you read the books of Prabhupada sincerely and try to follow it, read the life of Prabhupada, uh, follow those who are following Prabhupada, then we are actually in touch with Prabhupada. You will never feel that separation. So definitely Prabhupada is that Param Guru. Prabhupada's instructions, Prabhupada's books are the basis of everything in ISKCON. So that's the first principle. But having said that, it is also important that we also need to take Diksha from the authorized gurus in ISKCON whenever that time comes. The disciples of Prabhupada, uh, that's how the parampara goes on. So that also should be our aspiration. But then on a practical front, many times the Diksha gurus don't have so much time to guide the disciple on a day-to-day basis, right? So two things we need to do. One is follow the instructions, or three things. Follow the instructions of Prabhupada, right? Listen to your guru, which may be general instructions. Plus, we can listen to many other devotees, gain inspiration from everyone. And also, we need one devotee in our life whom we can trust. He need not be a guru, he need not be a Diksha Guru. Any devotee, or a very sincere devotee who is practicing Krishna consciousness for quite a few years, very steady, we can trust the devotee and take guidance from the devotee on a day-to-day front, like managing practical decisions, like how to balance Krishna consciousness and family. So we will need practical guidance also. See, everything you will not get only in the classes or only in the books. You will need some practical guidance on a day-to-day front. So we will all need to find one devotee who we can trust in, and that devotee can be that friend, guide, counselor for all of us. If we can find that devotee, it's like a great benediction, and then spiritual life becomes very
So
smooth.
that one individual guru is a must.
Individual guru means Diksha Guru is a must, definitely. And also one counselor or a guide will be very beneficial in life.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, even if you follow the instruction of the Siksha Guru also, that is better na, Prabhu?
Yes, definitely. See, the point is, whether it is Diksha Guru, Siksha Guru, or scriptures, there is no, it all boils down to the same thing. Because the Siksha Guru will be loyal to Param Guru, Srila Prabhupada, the scriptures, and his Diksha Guru. So in one sense, it's all connected only. So it's not that this or that, everything has to go together.
But you are telling one devotee, na, Prabhu. We will choose our devotee is like Siksha Guru. We are always hearing the lectures and following the
best. If you have one particular Siksha Guru you are listening to, if he can be your guide, that is the best. Yeah, that is the
he
best.
always give time also.
Yeah, that is the best. That is the best. Like in English, they say, na, it takes an entire village to raise one child. Similarly, to make one person into a fully Krishna conscious devotee, it takes an entire family. It takes an entire village. So you have a Diksha Guru, you have many Siksha Gurus, you get inspiration from so many people, you have your own counselor. So in this way it goes on. So it's not that just one guru, it's like an entire family. That's why Srila Prabhupada made this ISKCON. It's a huge family which keeps encouraging us, supporting us, and in this way we can continue our journey.
Prabhuji, I have one more small clarification.
Yeah.
I may be wrong here. I am from Bangalore actually.
Yeah.
I was told that only Srila Prabhupada ji is Guru. All the other acharyas whom we meet, sort of, they are like mentors for you. You cannot call them they're the Guru. So
Yeah, I get
how
it.
do
Yeah, that's Madhuri. I'll talk to you personally because I understand in Bangalore this scenario is there, of Ritwik. So that's like so the Ritwik people speak this way, but we have to see basically what is the scriptural understanding and what is the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. That's what the importance is, right? So in fact, I was just reading this. I'll just tell you this in detail. We can discuss privately. I was reading a book of Giriraj Maharaj, the story of Juhu, how our ISKCON Juhu got built. So there, when Prabhupada was in his final stages in Vrindavan, last days, so two people, one Mr. Bajaj and one more person, started to speak to Prabhupada privately. And they asked Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, you are on your final days now. After you leave, who is going to be the next Acharya? Who is going to lead ISKCON? And Prabhupada told them very clearly that all my disciples will lead ISKCON. They will work as a group and they will lead ISKCON. And everyone will be a guru. Prabhupada told them that anyone who sincerely practices and follows my instruction, everyone can be a guru. So definitely Prabhupada is that Param Guru, but Prabhupada wanted every disciple, every of his disciple and his grand disciples in future to be gurus. Bharata Bhumite hoile manusya janma ja, janma sartha kari karo paropkar. So this is Lord Chaitanya's philosophy that everyone should be a guru and try to preach Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada definitely wanted the guru system to continue. Prabhupada didn't want the guruship to stop with him. He wanted his disciples also to continue being gurus.
Even in our mutts and all that, Pejawar mutt, after he leaves the body, the next will be the Guru, right?
That is the parampara system.
Yeah.
It has to continue. It has to continue.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we'll catch up next week. Hope all of you all are continuing your chanting and your inspiration is high. Thank you very much for your precious time. So we'll continue next week from verse number 8. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu.